Hi, and welcome back to this Monday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. I'm Brian Fisher, your host. Convivial, congenial, and amiable as always. The program is Focal Point. The network is the American Family Radio Talk Network. We've all been following what's been going on the East Coast with this superstorm, Sandy. And here to help us sort through the latest information from the site itself is Todd Starnes, Fox News commentator. You hear his commentaries right here on American Family Radio Talk Network every day. Todd, welcome back to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Brian, thanks a lot. Greetings from my Fox News Superstorm bunker.
Well, let us know what's going on. What is what's the latest out there? What are you seeing? What's kind of striking you? What's grabbing your attention as you look at what's going on there?
Well, you know, the mainstream media came and covered this when President Obama showed up over in New Jersey. And it was as if once he landed on the ground that the entire region was magically restored and that the land was healed. And then he left. And so the national media really hasn't been covering what's been happening here. And I have to tell you, as a resident of New York City, as you know, I live among the indigenous liberal population of Brooklyn. This is a very serious issue. Just take what happened in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina and multiply it by 5, and you get a pretty good idea of the destruction and the amount of loss in this part of the country.
You know, it's interesting, Todd, because most people think of Katrina as a more massive sort of catastrophe, but you know, the more pictures I see, the more people I hear from that are actually boots on the ground there. This is a pretty devastating storm.
It is an absolutely devastating storm, and the fact of the matter is President Obama came here, shook hands, hugged a few necks, and then went off to fundraise and party and hobnob with all of his Hollywood celebrity types. In the meantime, the mainstream media is giving him a pass on his government's response to this disaster. Do you know that FEMA actually ran out of bottled water on Friday? And, you know, the mainstream media, MSNBC leading the charge, they humiliated Mitt Romney's call to send non-perishable goods to the region. Well, it turns out that Mitt Romney was absolutely right because the government hasn't been providing these necessities for people. Private companies have.
You know, it's interesting to me, you know, talking about that, Todd, you know, what the folks in Staten Island need now is food. So, you know, your point is well taken. That's what Governor Romney was collecting. Everybody was saying, no, don't bring food. What you need to do here is give money to the Red Cross. People down in Staten Island saying, hey, the Red Cross isn't even here. And when they are here, they're showing up with cookies and hot chocolate. We need food and blankets. So the Red Cross has virtually been useless, according to what I'm hearing from people in Staten Island. And what they're hungry for, literally, and what they're begging for is food, the very thing that Governor Romney was collecting for them.
Yeah, in addition to these liberals needing Jesus, they need a good dose of common sense. We've got stories that you would just not believe. We had a group of utility workers from the state of Alabama came all the way up to New York or to New Jersey, where they were supposed to be helping repair utility lines and get the power back on. Do you know they were stopped in Virginia at a staging area, and they were told that they had to become members of the local union before they would be able to do electrical work, volunteer work in the state of New Jersey. So, Brian, you know what those guys did? They hightailed it right back to Alabama.
Oh.
We've got the National Guard here. Here's the big story that folks don't want to talk about. This is like a jungle out there, lawlessness. People are having to go to bed with baseball bats and knives because they're terrified of the looters. And in Staten Island especially, they said send out the National Guard, post them on the street corners. And Mayor Bloomberg, our independent, our liberal or Democrat turned Republican turned independent mayor, said absolutely not. He said the only people allowed to have guns are the NYPD. So they wouldn't let the National Guard put a stop to this looting.
You know, this is an amazing thing to me, Todd, when you think about it, because the whole point of having guns is to be able to stop people that are using guns. And here you got this widespread looting that you were talking about. That's why Brooklyn Borough President Marty Markowitz asked for the National Guard to stop the looting. And Mayor Bloomberg says, no, we're not going to let the National Guard in here. They've got guns. Well,
Look,
Mayor Bloomberg, that's kind of the point here.
yeah, Bloomberg is a total joke. Do you know that he actually wanted to have the New York City Marathon, 50,000 runners? They actually wanted to have the race on Sunday. The outrage was so great and so significant that they finally had to back down. But the mayor is going around saying that, it's not going to cause any additional issues. You got 50,000 people jogging through a hurricane disaster zone, Brian.
Well, and Todd, what I've read is, the crying need was for energy and for food and blankets and that kind of thing. And I read a story, I think yesterday afternoon, that all of the generators and the food and the blankets and the jackets that had been collected by the city to use for the marathon, heaters, dozens of generators are still sitting in Central Park.
That's right, they certainly are. And look, again, it's part of this liberal, highbrow hypocrisy where the people that are actually doing good deeds, for example, Walmart, which brought in truckloads of bottled water, this city won't allow Walmart to open up a store in the metropolitan New York area. And yet Walmart comes up here and hands out and distributes all of this water and these other things, these other goods that people need. There are reports of individuals defecating in hallways because they have no way to get down out of their high-rise buildings. This is a very grim situation.
Well, another thing that struck me, Todd, is I read a story about Anheuser-Busch Brewery in Georgia. They've stopped making beer, and they're now making water, and they're going to get that water. This is private industry going to get water to Staten Island before Obama's FEMA does. And it's interesting to me, FEMA's out there trying to get more water, and they have to turn to the private sector. They're putting out bids. Who in the private sector can give us 2.3 million gallons of water or bottles of water, whatever it is they're looking for? But they're turning to the private sector.
Look, I think people need to understand this, Brian, that at this very moment, the temperature's near freezing. People are huddled and they're ruined in the ruins of their homes. They're having to wear layers of clothing. They're having to rely on the kindness of people like the Southern Baptist Convention serving 400,000 meals a day. And yet they go to sleep fearful of these gangs of roving thugs who are stealing and looting and hoarding, and this is a very clear example of Barack Obama's America. This is his Katrina, and the mainstream media is derelict in their duties to report this story because they know if they reported the truth, it would reflect poorly on the president the day before the election.
This is a little bit of a departure, Todd, but I've been speculating about what's going to happen 2 days from now if President Obama loses this election. And I'm looking at the looting that's taken place in Coney Island and Staten Island, and I'm looking at a story here from last week, New York Daily News. Here's a reporter that was interviewing some of these folks. Here's somebody running out of a Rite Aid with bags of diapers and wipes that they just snatched off the shelves. And here's a guy that helped himself to a television at a local rent-a-center. Reporter asks him, he says, look, they've been looting our wallets for too long. It's about time we started taking the beep back. So you wonder if Obama loses this, he's the one that's out there talking about revenge, got to take revenge on Election Day. Well, if using your vote for revenge doesn't work, what's next? Well, you wonder if it's going to be people with this mentality, we're entitled. President Romney would take all our stuff away from us. We got to go get it because it rightfully belongs to us.
And Brian, you and I both know that there are liberal lurkers listening to us at this very moment. And I believe I should correct myself. We've been calling them looters, people stealing other people's things, when in fact they very well may be, and I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, these people very well may be engaged in the redistribution of the wealth.
Well, and it strikes me, and they feel entitled to it. I mean, that's the thing that concerns me is the kind of unrest that we could have. You got places like New York, other places like Chicago have these really strict gun control laws, leaving shopkeepers and residents unable to defend themselves. And I don't know if you have a sense, Todd, from what you're seeing there in Staten Island, if you think we could see that sort of lawlessness on a larger scale if President Obama loses this reelection bid.
We have seen those reports nationwide. We've seen the threats on Twitter. Look, we've heard from Obama's supporters who have said, if talking about, about debate, if they bring a knife, we bring a gun. We've heard the union thugs threatening violence. Do you just laugh this off, or do you take it seriously? And I can assure you, Brian, that the Starnes family relatives in the southern states, where they do allow Americans to practice their Second Amendment rights, they are fully prepared to defend property and family in the event that looters and things of that nature happen. But I think it's a sad thing, because this is a president who promised to unite, not divide. And now here we are on the eve of this election, and you have people out there threatening violence, and it's really unfortunate.
Todd, let me play one quick soundbite for you. You'll have just about 45 seconds left to respond. This is clip number 12, Rob. This is NBC's Savannah Guthrie. Liberals been out there. I mean, some of them, the Muslims are saying this is Allah punishing the United States for Libya and for whatever. You've got liberals saying this is Gaia punishing America for ignoring climate change. If any Christian was out there saying, hey, maybe God's trying to get our attention, they would accuse us of being theocratic, judgmental bigots. But here's Savannah Guthrie, and this is her perspective on the gift that Sandy might have been to Obama. Let's listen.
Response isn't what it should be. But look, when you have a race this tight, things like a hurricane, this can move the needle when you're talking about a race that's so close. And I think it was an important moment for the president, because in the last 3-4 weeks of the campaign, I don't think he had been going out of his way to appeal to independents whatsoever. This was a campaign built to turn out the base of the party. And here was a moment handed to him seemingly from above, where he could look like that strong independent, steady in a storm, very appealing to the middle of the road voters. And I might add, to unmarried women voters who are going to be very key in this election.
30 seconds, Todd. She says this is a gift from God to President Obama.
Yeah, this anchorette just said that people had to lose their lives so that Barack Obama could look presidential.
Well, that's a liberal mindset for you. Todd Starnes has been our guest, a frequent contributor on Fox News. You hear his commentary right here every day on the American Family Radio Talk Network. Todd, thanks for taking time to be with us, and we'll continue to look forward to you reporting from the scene.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Todd Starnes, Fox News contributor. So Savannah Guthrie saying, as Todd Starnes said, God had to take people's lives in order to give Barack Obama a chance at re-election. Back in 2.